Okay, everybody. Whoa. Okay, everybody. I want to thank Jeff Hartzell for joining me here. ETSU, and our Facebook Live has just fallen down, but ETSU has now won 12 games in a row, 16 of 17. The only lost Xavier, which, by the way, number 3 in the RPI. And the AP poll is supposed to be coming out any time now. So there you go with that. I think that it's kind of interesting to see where Tennessee is ranked this week. Purdue has the longest winning streak in the country. They're actually even getting a number 1 vote they've won 17 straight, have the Boilermakers. By the way, I would also point out, interesting that Steve Forbes getting a little bit of national attention, the ETSU head men's basketball coach. CollegeInsider.com gave him an interview. You can find that on their website, CollegeInsider.com, which is a leading mid-major website. Earlier, we talked a little bit about scheduling in college basketball because the NCAAs is now allowing teams to open up in midweek in November, and that means less competition with basketball and football. And Frank Martin is actually saying, hey, let's just take 2 games off the schedule and really not, let me get my players studying, this sort of thing. Let me get them, and we don't need to play, whoever. That would be, and it's already tougher because Big Ten and SEC are not going to schedule 20 league games in future seasons. So the chances of past games for ETSU against the likes of historically Vanderbilt, Ed DeChilis used to play them a lot. I know that's ancient history. Certainly Tennessee has been a common opponent. ACC schools, Clemson used to be a common opponent for ETSU, Virginia Tech. Here's something interesting. I was mentioning the RPIs. I think that the loss of Preston Parks from the Citadel, and for that matter, the demise of Chattanooga, not to mention a little bit of, I think people thought Mercer was going to be better. Well, they did. They thought Mercer was going to be better than what they were this year. Anyway, SoCon is only 17th in the RPI in terms of conferences of the 31 conferences. That doesn't include the independents, who sometimes are listed as a, RPI of the independents, or 4 teams. And it's New Jersey Tech, independent, somebody like that, But the SoCon is 17. Last year they were 15. I can remember the SoCon being as high as 14. ETSU, number 58 in the RPI. Remember, 68 teams make the NCAAs. Potential at-large for ETSU? Just throwing it out there. In fact, Jeff Hartzell, if you heard it and if you watched it on Facebook Live, you may say, that might mean that ETSU, they have to continue to win out to do it. But who knows? Strength of schedule is going to hurt them, though. Tennessee is 13th in the RPI rankings. Virginia Tech is 72nd. Gonzaga is 57. Remember, ETSU is 58. Quite interesting, is it not? So, there you are. One last thing. I was mentioning the Pro Bowl. Didn't get much of a chance. It was something of a debut for Matt Hasselbeck. Now that John Gruden is coaching the Oakland Raiders, the Monday Night Football crew in ESPN, Sean McDonough, needs a new color commentator. So they tried out Matt Hasselbeck. Hasselbeck wasn't anything, tremendously notable. It wasn't, there wasn't a comment like Howard Cosell in the first Monday Night Football game saying, Leroy Kelly has not been a compelling factor tonight, which kind of changed the way that we comment on football games today. But Hasselbeck did make this comment during the game. Now, the 49ers fullback Kyle Juszczyk got a handoff, took a ball for a first down during the Pro Bowl, and Hasselbeck said that giving the ball to fullbacks never happens in the NFL anymore. To which Kyle said, what are you talking about? He had 40 touches this year for the 49ers, 33 receptions, 7 carries. That's not, though, Franco Harris as a fullback. I'm sorry. That's not, the two-backs. So nobody's really jumping up and down on Hasselbeck, except the player called out, the 49ers fullback. But introductory, sort of broadcast for Hasselbeck. One critic, I think Hasselbeck can probably withstand that. Of course, the rumor mill is that Peyton Manning is the guy that ESPN wants to bring in. Talked about that last week. Also this weekend, Jemele Hill is no longer going to be on SC6 on ESPN. Perhaps we should have done a media watch here. But I mention this because if Hasselbeck is being groomed to be the color commentator of Monday Night Football, and I've theorized, okay, if we're going to have 3 in a booth, who's the journalist? Who's the outside? Who's the personality? It was Cosell in the 70s and early 80s. Got away from that. Dan Deerdorf, they tried him and kind of for years in that I'm going to be the critical commentator, but he was a Pro Football Hall of Famer. And when you look back, I know that Chris Collinsworth as a color commentator is viewed to be a bit more critical than some of his brethren. I like Collinsworth. I don't have a problem with him. And I know that Deerdorf, that was the role he was given, but did he ever really say anything that was, did you hear what Dan Deerdorf said? No, I don't really think so. There was a period of time around the turn of the century, Monday Night Football trying to revamp, of course, the 2-year Dennis Miller experiment. I remember always, I would go on, at the time I had AOL. I remember when people actually had AOL. And you used to, on a Tuesday morning, they were trying to promote Dennis. What did Dennis Miller say? And he really didn't say much. I mean, he just... Tony Kornheiser was tried in that role. And the thing was, there just hasn't been another Cosell. There hasn't been that guy that really took the microphone. There wasn't the contrasting of personalities, but still being able to somehow incorporate them all into the booth that you had with Dandy Don, being from Texas, and Howard Cosell being from Brooklyn. That's really all of America right there. Did you go to the heartland? Did you go to the big city? That's who you identified with. And then you had, Gifford, who at the time, Frank Gifford, was a glamour boy of the NFL. So, anyway, I've theorized, what if we try to do 3 in a booth again? Now, my guess is that they won't do it, but I did think, who's out there? Who's the person that people talk about? When Tony Kornheiser was that person, he was the hottest sports writer in the country. Had his talk show. Actually, they developed a TV series. Jason Alexander basically played Tony Kornheiser on TV for a period of time. It went away. You had Pardon the Interruption, but Kornheiser's star is not what it was 15 years ago. Who is that person? Burr under the saddle. Did you hear what they had to say in today's sports media world? And I mentioned at the start of the show, I talked about the old Super Bowl highlights and just how we played a little bit clip from Super Bowl 51 highlights, and it's totally different. There's far less narration now. There's far less storytelling, and it's basically a highlight film in today's Super Bowl highlight film than there was of years gone by. And less, importance of music, this sort of thing, humor. Okay. The person I came up with was, who's that hot sports media personality, the one that gets, the burr under your saddle, the one that says something that you got to comment on, was Jemele Hill. And Jemele Hill leaving SC6, Sports Center 6 p.m. Of course, she was suspended a couple of weeks for calling President Donald Trump a white supremacist on Twitter, which I don't agree with her in one bit. In fact, I've noticed Jemele Hill since Orlando, and I saw her when she was a writer for the Orlando Sentinel, and I've talked about this on the show, where I was even critical of her back then with some of her interviewing style, which I thought was confrontational, but confrontational to a flaw. There's nothing wrong with confrontational interviews. There's a place for them. And if that's going to be your niche, great. But it's one thing to do that, and it's another thing to play the confrontation when you're actually trying to have interviews that are formed to be relaxed. And even if you wanted to get the hard-hitting, the real big quote out of that, I didn't agree with her methods. I could elaborate, but I could go on. I think I've made my point. I'd be happy to elaborate if someone wanted to call me up at 423-743-6124 and explain. Anyway, Jemele Hill's going to leave SC6. She's going to go start writing for The Undefeated, and will be taking on... Undefeated is a website that caters to black sports fans. She said that she missed reporting. I get that. I would think then that if that is the case, then my theory, and it was just a theory, that if you were looking for that person, that what did they have to say next to bring back Monday Night Football, I'd kind of be surprised if it was Hill. Now, I will say this. She's still under contract to ESPN, and her role is going to be reorganized, so who knows? I don't know if 3 in a booth, Monday Night Football hasn't done that in quite a while. But I would suggest to you that if they were looking for that burn to the saddle third person, yeah, possibly. What about Nick Wright? We got the Trooper coming in on Facebook Live. I don't know. I think that it'll either be Hasselbeck or Peyton Manning will be the color commentator. At least that's what the reports are. I just wonder, if you want to make it must watch, there's only one Howard Cosell. They've been trying to find that for 35 years. But somebody who really likes to stir the pot, you could say, what about a Clay Travis? What about a Jim Rome? Not sure what their contracts are if they get into ESPN, someone like that. But I don't know. I think Rome by this time, his act is sort of played. We know what it is. He won't be shocking. Travis is an up-and-comer, maybe, but he's under contract with Fox. ESPN, couldn't you see them going that? Now, would the NFL sign off on it? That's a big question. Probably not. Something to look to. So, I do wonder what the future of SportsCenter is going to be. We're getting our highlights more and more on the internet. An hour breakdown, trying to go through. For myself, I'm not particularly interested in NBA highlights, and ESPN certainly tries to push those down our throat. I think that, when we have, say, baseball fans may look more and more, if they want that general recap and something more than just their team to follow around, they might look at MLB.com, same thing, or the MLB Network. And all the major sports now have their own networks, so if you're looking for your own highlight, it can be right there. Like I said, I am not huge on NBA highlights or NBA news. And so when they start broadcasting that, I tend to tune out. And I don't think I'm the only one. And this is a problem with ESPN. The other thing is, quite frankly, and I love people who try to say that ESPN is not being political. I love people who try to say that. That shows more about that person's politics than, I mean, you're denying the nose on your face. ESPN is obviously political, and Hill is the sort of person that they would love to put, in my opinion, on a broadcast. So, there you go. We've got a little more Super Bowl news here. Some talk about Tom Brady not being very happy with WEEI, Sports Talk Radio. Braves have a new mascot. Racist imagery on the Tennessee Rock. And more. And WWE is up. And I'm going to tell you about that. Try to get all those stories on Tri-City Sports Now when we return.